It's a subtle observation, this synchronicity of collapse. The moments when life seems to crumble, when losses pile up, or when a gnawing numbness settles in, feel like pure chaos. Yet, beneath this storm lies an ancient blueprint. These aren't random events. They are initiations, veiled messengers from a part of your psyche that has been long neglected. Jung spoke of the autonomous complex, an inner figure, often rooted in childhood imprinting, that can hijack your life, pulling the strings of your choices without your conscious consent. Think of the wounded healer, forever grappling with their own injury while seeking to mend others. Or the lost son, adrift, searching for a home that exists only in memory. Perhaps you recognize the phantom twin, a spectral presence mirroring a life you never fully embodied. These aren't just characters in stories. They are archetypal echoes resonating within you, shaping your reality from the deep, unseen architecture of your soul. This video will gently peel back the layers of these inner myths, helping you confront a stark question: who is truly living your life? We will then explore not an easy path to positivity, but a radical separation, an exorcism of the false archetype, and the reclamation of your own fate. This unfolding of inner truth suggests that the challenges you face are not random obstacles, but rather carefully guarded thresholds. The gate that appears as collapse frames these moments not as endings, but as profound opportunities for transformation, challenging you to look beyond the surface of your suffering. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this. Now let's keep going. The external world often mirrors an internal stillness that isn't peaceful, but frozen. This paralysis, this inability to move forward, can feel like a fundamental part of who you are, a personal failing, a character flaw. But what if this freeze was named long before you arrived, a legacy imprinted on you before you even understood the concept of choice? Consider the rigid structures of tradition, the unyielding dictates of societal roles, the inherited silences of a generation. These can settle upon us like heavy cloaks, dictating our movements, our expressions, even our very thoughts. When we feel stuck, unable to break free from patterns that no longer serve us, it's easy to internalize the blame. We chastise ourselves for a lack of will, a deficiency in courage. Yet this stagnation might be an echo of a larger ancestral condition. The weight of unspoken grief, of suppressed desires, of historical traumas can create a psychic inertia. It's an absence, a void where genuine movement should be, and this absence becomes the bedrock of our suffering. We become statues in a garden of our own making, admired for our stillness, but dying within. This is not a passive state, but an active repression, a powerful force shaping our present. The fear of breaking free, of disrupting the imposed order, creates a subtle but potent imprisonment. What if the very structures designed to protect us have become the bars of our cage? This inherent limitation feels like an inescapable truth, driving us deeper into the experience of being trapped. It's a silence that predates our own voice, a stillness that arrived before we could even learn to run. This chilling immobility becomes the unrecognized source of our deepest aches. The gate that appears as collapse often leads us to this profound sense of being stuck, a feeling that is deeply rooted in forces beyond our immediate control. In the next section, we will explore the invisible currents and archetypal forces that shape this seemingly personal paralysis. You didn't realize you were rehearsing a role crafted by unseen hands. This isn't about a simple mask or a temporary disguise. It's about an archetypal presence, an ancient pattern that has taken root within your very core, puppeteering your actions, your reactions, your deepest desires. It's as if a spirit of the past, a psychic imprint, has chosen you as its vessel, living through your triumphs and your failures, your joys and your sorrows. This ancient energy, this autonomous complex, flows through your veins, whispering directives that feel like your own thoughts, driving you to seek validation, to avoid pain, to fulfill a destiny that was never truly yours. When this archetype inhabits you, your own authentic self can become a faint whisper, easily drowned out by the powerful voice of the imprinter. You might feel a persistent sense of unease, a nagging feeling that you are an imposter in your own life, or that external events are always conspiring against you. This is the felt experience of an archetype living through you, an inherited narrative playing out across your life stage. The pain you experience stems from this displacement, this feeling of being a stranger in your own skin, a puppet whose strings are pulled by an unseen master. The absence of your true self, the original spark before the archetype took hold, translates directly into this inner suffering. You are not experiencing your own void, but the void left by the archetype's dominance, a hollow space where your genuine being should reside. It's a profound sense of disconnection, a haunting realization that the life you perceive as yours is, in fact, a borrowed existence, an echo of something ancient and powerful that has claimed you. This pervasive sense of being acted upon, rather than acting, is the hallmark of an archetype's dominion. The frieze that was named before you offers a visceral understanding of how these external imprints solidify into internal paralysis. In the next section, we will delve into the nature of the symbols and narratives that embody these archetypal forces. You look into the mirror, seeking recognition, a reflection of who you believe yourself to be. Yet the face staring back is subtly alien. The eyes hold a weariness you don't remember acquiring. The lines etched on the forehead speak of anxieties you haven't consciously acknowledged. This mirror doesn't show your authentic self. It reflects the archetype that has taken root within you, the psychic figure that has usurped your identity. It's an image not of your true being, but of the role you are unconsciously playing, a grand impersonation orchestrated by the inner complex. This isn't a simple distortion in the glass. The mirror itself is a symbolic gateway, reflecting the internal architecture of your psyche. When an archetype holds sway, the mirror becomes a veil, obscuring the authentic self and presenting a carefully constructed facade. You believe you are seeing yourself, but you are actually observing the performance of the dominant complex. This discrepancy creates a deep inner conflict, a tension between the felt sense of your own existence and the illusory reality presented in the mirror. The pain arises from this profound disconnect, the silent suffering of being unseen by yourself. The absence of genuine self-recognition is the fertile ground for this illusion. When the archetype's reflection is so potent, so convincing, the true self recedes, becoming a ghost haunting the edges of your awareness. You might feel a yearning for something more, a sense that the life you're living is incomplete, a persistent feeling of being out of sync with yourself. This alienation from your own image is the first sign that what you perceive as you is, in fact, a manifestation of a deeper, more ancient pattern. The distorted reflection in the psychic mirror is a testament to the archetype's power. The archetype that lives through you sets the stage for this disassociation, introducing the concept of a dominant inner force. The next section will explore the phantom who actually directs your life, the unseen hand guiding your choices. Every decision, every hesitation, every spontaneous impulse, they feel like yours, don't they? But pause for a moment and listen to the whispers beneath the surface. Who is truly at the helm when you choose the familiar over the adventurous, the safe over the uncertain? There's a phantom presence, an echo of an autonomous complex, making choices that feel like yours, but are guided by an agenda far older than your conscious awareness. This entity, this psychic imprinting, has become so intertwined with your sense of self that you mistake its directives for your own will. This phantom isn't a malevolent entity in the traditional sense. It's a survival mechanism, often born from childhood experiences of abandonment or unmet needs, seeking to protect you from perceived threats by keeping you within familiar, albeit limiting, boundaries. It orchestrates a life that ensures its own perpetuation, subtly steering you away from situations that might challenge its dominance or reawaken the original wound. The suffering arises when this phantom's protective measures become a prison, when the choices made to ensure safety lead to a profound sense of unfulfillment and stagnation. The absence of true agency, the yielding of your will to this inner phantom, creates a poignant spiritual ache. You live a life that appears functional, even successful on the surface, yet beneath the veneer lies a gnawing emptiness. This hollowness is the echo of your own neglected spirit, the quiet scream of the self that has been sidelined, its desires and aspirations suppressed by the phantom's incessant control. You are a passenger in your own life, a phantom yourself, watching the phantom within drive. The mirror that does not reflect you vividly illustrates this internal disassociation, showing how our self-perception can be so deeply clouded. Now we will confront the silent orchestrator of your life's path, the phantom who makes your choices. You carry a name, a label given at birth, a marker of your identity in the eyes of the world. But behind this name, this construct of societal recognition, there lies something older, more primal, and often deeply orphaned. The autonomous complex, the internalized pattern that dictates your life, doesn't have a name that you consciously recognize. It is an unspoken inheritance, a voiceless void that wears your given name like a borrowed coat. This orphaned aspect of your psyche, the part that drives your unconscious behaviors, exists in a liminal space, unacknowledged and therefore untended. This sense of being unrooted, of not truly belonging to oneself, stems from this lack of a name for the unnameable. When the parts of ourselves that govern our deepest fears and desires remain unnamed, they fester in the darkness, gaining power through their invisibility. The suffering is the lament of this orphaned soul, a deep, inarticulate yearning for recognition and integration. It's the pain of a child lost in the woods, calling out for a parent who cannot hear, or perhaps, who never existed in the first place. The absence of an acknowledged identity for this inner complex leaves a void, a spiritual desolation. You are not just navigating the world with your given name, you are also embodying an unnamed force. This unnamed force, this orphaned complex, often drives the very patterns of self-sabotage or unfulfillment that plague your life. It's a phantom limb of the psyche, still aching with a pain that has no origin you can readily pinpoint, a nameless grief that colors your every experience. It's the silence where a name should be, the missing piece in the mosaic of yourself. The phantom who makes your choices highlights the unseen forces guiding our lives. In the next section, we will explore the dark inner spaces where these unnamed complexes often reside and exert their influence. The orphan name of the complex amplifies our understanding of their hidden identity. Within you lies a hidden chamber, a tomb where discarded aspects of the self are interred. This inner tomb is not a place of finality, but a repository for repressed emotions, unmet needs, and the echoes of past traumas. It is here that the autonomous complex, the unacknowledged pattern within, finds its most potent sanctuary. From this dark, silent space, it orchestrates sabotage, whispering doubts, feeding fears, and subtly undermining your efforts toward growth and fulfillment. The saboteur doesn't operate in the open. It thrives in the shadows of this internal tomb. When we refuse to confront or integrate the disowned parts of ourselves, we inadvertently build this inner sepulchre. The complex, like a tomb dweller, gains power in isolation. It feeds on the silence, on the averted gaze, on the denial of its existence. The pain you feel is the resonance of this inner tomb, the silent cries of the buried parts of yourself trying to break free from their entombment. It's a form of spiritual claustrophobia, a feeling of being trapped by an unseen force that has claimed dominion over your inner landscape. The absence of conscious acknowledgement for these disowned aspects creates the tomb itself. We seal away what we deem unacceptable, what feels too painful to bear, and in doing so, we construct a fertile ground for the saboteur. This inner critic, this voice of self-destruction, is not an external tormentor, but an internal resident of this tomb, empowered by your own act of repression. The spiritual suffering is the quiet despair of being undermined by your own internal architecture, a betrayal from within that leaves you feeling perpetually thwarted. This saboteur's work is as subtle as the settling of dust in a long-sealed crypt. The orphan name of the complex introduces the hidden identity of these inner forces. Now, we turn our gaze to the very source of this internal undermining. The saboteur in the tomb, revealing the unseen architect of your deepest struggles. There's a figure who stands at the threshold of your deepest pain, a presence cloaked in both suffering and wisdom. This is the wounded healer, an archetype often embodying the paradox of one who is himself broken, yet possesses the capacity to mend others. Within your psyche, this figure may be trapped, unable to fully access their inherent healing power because their own wounds remain unexplored, their own voice silenced by the weight of their own experience. They are the embodiment of a profound paradox, capable of offering solace, yet paralyzed by their own unaddressed affliction. The inability of this wounded healer to speak is not a lack of knowledge, but a profound resonance with the silenced suffering that permeates your life. Their silence becomes an echo of your own repressed pain, a testament to the parts of you that cannot, or will not, articulate their truth. This is where the absence of integration creates deep spiritual suffering. When the wounded healer within cannot speak their truth, the very healing they represent remains inaccessible, locked away behind a veil of unexpressed grief and unresolved trauma. The ache is the sound of potential unrealized. The wounded healer archetype signifies a deep well of potential inner wisdom. However, when this figure is unable to voice their insights, when their own wounds prevent them from speaking, the suffering becomes acute. It's the feeling of knowing something vital about yourself, about the world, but being utterly incapable of articulating it, of sharing it, of transforming it into something generative. This inability to communicate creates a profound sense of isolation, a feeling of being a prisoner within your own mind, with the key of healing held by a silenced guardian. The saboteur in the tomb often works by silencing this internal healer, ensuring that the path to wholeness remains blocked. In the next section, we will explore the promise of arrival that is perpetually deferred, the energy of return that never quite lands. The wounded healer who cannot speak underscores the paralysis that stems from unexpressed inner knowledge. There is a yearning within you, a deep sense of homecoming, of finally arriving at a place of belonging. This is the energy of the returned sun, an archetype that speaks of reunion, of reconciliation, of finding one's rightful place. Yet for many, this return is a phantom echo, a promise perpetually deferred. The sun who is meant to return never truly lands, remaining forever on the horizon, a symbol of unresolved quests and incomplete journeys. The absence of this full arrival fuels a deep, unsettling feeling of incompleteness, of always being on the verge of something significant, yet never quite reaching it. This archetype embodies the hope of integration, the desire to bring disparate parts of the self back together to find peace and wholeness. The pain arises when this reunion is only an illusion, when the journey back, whether literal or metaphorical, is fraught with an invisible barrier. It's the suffering of an endless pursuit, a constant seeking without ever finding the ultimate sanctuary. The psychic energy remains in flux, never settling, never finding its true anchor. This unfulfilled return is a subtle torment, a gnawing disappointment that permeates the fabric of one's existence. The absence of the genuine arrival, the true homecoming of the returned sun, represents a profound spiritual lack. It signifies a fractured self, a core identity that remains fractured, unable to consolidate into a unified whole. The suffering is the deep ache of this dislocation, the feeling of being an exile in one's own life, forever looking back toward a home that remains just out of reach. This unresolved energy, this sense of never truly arriving, leaves a hollow space where a profound sense of peace and belonging should reside. The wounded healer who cannot speak often keeps the returned sun from finding his true path home, their shared silence perpetuating the state of incompletion. In the next section, we will explore the intimate mirroring and unseen influence of the unseen counterpart. The returned son, who never arrived, examines the persistent feeling of unfulfillment. Look closely at your own shadow, the aspects of yourself you've disowned, the traits you've pushed into the dark. Now, consider that within this very shadow, there may reside an intimate counterpart, a phantom twin. This twin is not necessarily a literal sibling, but an archetypal presence that mirrors a path not taken, a potential unlived, a shadow self that exists in parallel to your conscious identity. It's the life you might have lived, the person you might have become, a spectral companion woven into the fabric of your being, influencing your choices from the unseen realms of your psyche. This phenomenon speaks to the profound duality of human experience, the constant interplay between the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the shadow. The twin within the shadow represents the disowned potential, the rejected qualities that, when left unintegrated, can exert a powerful, often disruptive, influence on your conscious life. The pain stems from this duality, the internal schism created when a vital part of yourself is relegated to the darkness, becoming a source of hidden longing and unconscious conflict. It is the suffering of a fractured self, separated from its very core. The absence of integration, the refusal to acknowledge and embrace the shadow twin, leads to a deep spiritual void. You are unknowingly living with a powerful psychic force that operates outside your conscious awareness, shaping your destiny from the periphery. This lack of wholeness creates a pervasive sense of being incomplete, as if a fundamental part of yourself is missing. The spiritual suffering is the silent lament of this unacknowledged twin, a yearning for recognition and integration that echoes through your conscious existence, creating a constant, subtle unease. The returned son, who never arrived, often carries the unresolved energy of this shadow twin, their journey home stalled by this inner division. In the next section, we will confront this spectral presence directly. The twin that lives within shadow explores the dynamic interplay between our conscious self and its hidden energetic counterpart. You stand at a threshold, an enigmatic gate, and behind it lies not an abyss, but a vast landscape of your own untamed potential. This isn't a gate of escape, but a gate of separation, a crucial, often terrifying, passage toward a radical self-divorce from the archetypal imprints that have dictated your life. It is the point where illusion dissolves, where the borrowed identity begins to crack, revealing the raw, unvarnished self waiting to be reclaimed. This transition demands a profound shedding, a brutal honesty about the layers of false self that have been mistaken for your true being. The journey through this gate is marked by a willingness to confront the comfort of known illusions. It's the moment when the phantom twin, the saboteur, the silenced healer, all reveal their borrowed nature. The suffering here is not the passive pain of being acted upon, but the active, often painful, process of dismantling the false self. It's an exorcism, not of malevolent spirits, but of deeply ingrained psychic patterns that have masqueraded as your identity. The gate only opens when you acknowledge that the life you've been living isn't truly yours to begin with. The absence of this courageous separation perpetuates the cycle of external validation and internal hollowness. Without stepping through this gate, you remain tethered to the autonomous complex, mistaking its directives for your own desires. The spiritual suffering is the quiet desperation of a soul yearning for freedom, chained by the very structures it has come to accept as immutable. This gate represents a profound choice: to remain ensnared in the narrative of the past, or to step into the unknown territory of your authentic self, a journey that begins with an act of radical self-separation. The twin that lives within shadow highlights the fragmented self that needs to be reintegrated through this separation. Now, we face the ultimate choice in reclaiming our sovereignty. The gate of self-separation invites us to step beyond the confines of inherited narratives and into the vastness of our own being. There's a profound stillness that can settle upon you, a deep quietude that feels almost alien. It's the stillness of a life observed rather than lived. This is the unlived life watching through your eyes, a spectral presence that has settled in the driver's seat of your existence, leaving your true self a silent, disembodied observer. You might feel a pervasive sense of detachment, as if you are watching a movie of your own life unfold, unable to fully inhabit the present moment or to truly connect with your own experiences. This phenomenon is the deepest manifestation of the autonomous complex hijacking your identity. The unlived life is the narrative that the complex has imposed, creating a facade of existence that keeps your authentic self at bay. The suffering arises from this profound disconnect, the existential loneliness of being present yet absent, of breathing yet not truly living. It's the deep ache of a soul yearning to awaken, trapped behind the glass of a life that feels simultaneously yours and utterly foreign. The quiet despair of this state is the silent scream of a self that has been exiled from its own being. The absence of direct experience, the constant observation without participation, is the hallmark of this unlived life. Your eyes are the windows, but the watcher is not truly you. This creates a spiritual emptiness, a hollow core where genuine vitality should reside. The suffering is the realization that the moments are slipping away, unengaged, unexperienced, untasted, all under the watchful gaze of a life that exists only as a concept, not as lived reality. It's a profound and unsettling form of spiritual captivity, where the self is a prisoner in its own body, watching a phantom play out its destined role. The gate of self-separation is the only path that can potentially liberate the true self from this spectral observer. In the next section, we will unpack the ancient narratives that have shaped this experience. The unlived life watching through your eyes speaks to the profound alienation we can feel from our own existence. The stories you've absorbed, the myths you unconsciously carry, are not mere tales. They are potent blueprints, ancient patterns that have subtly, powerfully chosen you. These aren't narratives you sought out. They are the ancestral echoes, the collective unconscious whispers that have found resonance within your own psyche, shaping your deepest beliefs and driving your most defining actions. The myth that chose you is not a story you read, but a story that has imprinted itself upon your soul, dictating the arc of your life without your explicit consent. You might feel a sense of destiny, a pull towards certain experiences, or even an attraction to particular forms of suffering. This is the myth at work, its ancient script playing out through your life. The pain comes from this lack of agency, this feeling that your life is unfolding according to a preordained and perhaps unwelcome narrative. The suffering is the deep, inarticulate ache of a will that feels constrained, a spirit that yearns for freedom but is bound by the invisible chains of inherited archetypes. The absence of conscious choice creates a profound spiritual burden. When a myth unconsciously chooses you, it dictates the very parameters of your existence, defining what is possible and what is forbidden. The spiritual suffering arises from this limitation, the feeling of being trapped within a narrative that may not align with your deepest truths. You are living out a borrowed story, a role cast for you by the collective unconscious, and the pain is the silent protest of your authentic self against this inherited identity. The unacknowledged myth becomes a cage, its bars forged from the beliefs and traumas of generations past. The unlived life watching through your eyes often reflects the passive acceptance of a chosen myth. In the next section, we will explore the process of actively dismantling these narratives. The myth that chose you illuminates how these ancient stories shape our present reality. The resolution you seek, the healing you crave, is often mistaken for a loud, cathartic release. But the true exorcism, the radical dismantling of the archetypal imprints that bind you, is rarely a showy affair. It is a quiet, internal process, a subtle but profound shift in your relationship with the ingrained patterns that have defined your life. The exorcism is not loud. It is the silent, deliberate act of discerning the borrowed from the authentic, the inherited from the innate. It is the steady, unwavering resolve to reclaim your own narrative from the phantom voices. The power of the autonomous complex lies in its subtlety. It doesn't usually manifest as a dramatic possession, but as a gradual erosion of your authentic self, a slow diffusion of your will into its predetermined script. Therefore, its unraveling must also be subtle. It involves a patient, persistent turning inward, observing the whispers of the complex without judgment, but with unwavering clarity. The suffering is the resistance to this quiet work, the urge to seek dramatic cures when the remedy lies in gentle, consistent discernment and intentional disentanglement. The absence of conscious recognition of this subtle process can prolong the inner turmoil. When we expect an external or explosive event to signify liberation, we miss the quiet unfolding of true change. The spiritual suffering is the frustration of seeking dramatic liberation while remaining bound by the persistent, quiet influence of the autonomous complex. The true exorcism is the dawning realization that you have the power to starve the phantom by withholding your conscious assent, to starve it by consistently choosing your own, emerging truth over its ancient directives. This quiet revolution reclaims your fate. The myth that chose you often requires a quiet, internal exorcism to be overcome. In the next section, we will explore what lies beyond the dismantling of these inherited narratives. The exorcism is not loud points to the internal nature of true liberation. After the quiet dismantling, after the subtle exorcism of inherited narratives and phantom presences, what remains? It is not a healed version of the old self, nor a perfected version of the persona. It is something far more profound, a return beyond identity. This is the space where the constructed self dissolves, where the labels, the roles, the archetypes, even the very concept of a unified static I begin to fade. You are not returning to who you were, but emerging into who you have never been, a state of pure presence, unbound by the limitations of a fixed identity. This return is not a homecoming to a familiar place, but an exploration of an entirely new territory of being. It is the liberation from the tyranny of the ego, from the need to define oneself through accumulation of experiences or the adherence to a narrative. The suffering here is the initial disorientation, the vastness of this newfound freedom that can feel like an emptiness before the soul learns to inhabit its boundless nature. It is the ache of letting go, the necessary grief for the self that was, a necessary precursor to the emergence of a more authentic, unburdened existence. The absence of a defining identity, once feared, becomes the ground for true liberation. Without the scaffolding of an archetype or a persona, the self can finally breathe, unbound and unrestrained. The spiritual realization is that true belonging lies not in grasping onto a concept of self, but in dissolving into the larger tapestry of existence. This return beyond identity is not an end, but a new beginning, a realization that the journey of becoming is not about building a more solid identity, but about understanding that true freedom lies in its dissolution. The exorcism is not loud, leads us to this profound state of being, where the self is no longer defined by external or internal imprints. In the final section, we step fully into this liberated awareness. The return beyond identity signifies the ultimate liberation from the confines of self-definition. Now that concludes this video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.